Jeff Kent got elected into the Hall of Fame right away, boys. Reactions. What do we think? How surprised are you?
I'm going to let Rich go first because he hit in front of Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds in the World Series, and I did not.
Well, I'll say this. The first thing, like watching it live, I mean, I had goosebumps. I mean, it's not every day you could say you played next to a Hall of Famer for the majority of your career. So, was I surprised? I don't think I was terribly surprised. Maybe Jeff got 14, I guess, out of 16 votes.
Mm-hmm.
That was maybe a little surprising, but you guys know this. Cole, you watched them play. Alex, you watched. It's well deserved. It should have been way sooner. And I'm glad they have this step now with the Veterans Committee, whatever you want to call it, to give some of these people, a second shot.
I was shocked. There were 4 possibilities here. Barry Bonds gets in, Jeff Kent gets in, neither gets in, both get in. This to me was the one that I think people, and I'll just say this, being in the lobby here at the winter meetings and being around that set that you saw where it was announced, this was the one that people were least expecting. I think the expectation here in Orlando was that neither one of them would get in. Don Mattingly has had a lot of support. Dale Murphy has had a lot of support. We saw Jeff mention both of those guys. And to your point, he's very well deserving. I was a little shocked that he never got past 50% on the traditional ballot. That felt like an injustice to me. Felt like something that wasn't talked about enough over the years. And I think part of that is maybe Jeff wasn't out there and banging the drum for himself. And we just didn't discuss it as much. And also there is the shadow of Barry Bonds' case hanging over all of this. So we all kind of put Jeff to the side a little bit. Very deserving. Most home runs ever by a second baseman. One of the best hitting middle infielders of all time. But I think if you look at the way this happened, it's a surprise within the industry a little bit, and not because it's not deserving, but just because you look at some of the other names on that ballot and you look at what happened to him in his 10 years on the writers ballot. But that's why they had this contemporary era ballot as well. And it's a chance to look at 8 guys on the ballot. Jeff was the only one to hit double digits, 16 people in that room voting, 7 Hall of Famers, 6 MLB executives, 3 writers. So it was a group of different people than the writers, and they viewed his career in a much different way.
It's going to be really interesting to see the reactions to this kind of develop, because you talk about Bonds kind of being the shadow over this, and that kind of seems like it was the story of Kent's career, playing alongside one of the greatest players of all time. And you look at the stats, you look at the numbers he put in, you're talking about him as one of the greatest hitting middle infielders of all time. And that's what he deserves to be remembered as. So I really hope that this finally cements that as his legacy.
I agree with you, and I've for years I've said this, man. Like, I played next to the guy. He was a better than average defender. He wasn't a terrible defender. Turned a great double play. Could make that play backhanded up the middle and throw off balance with the best of them. So I think he gets a bad rap sometimes for his defense. Because I think about this, and I said this in an interview the other day with somebody. Like, I never remember us losing a game because of Jeff Kent's defense. Never even crossed my mind. And for him to, get in on this. And here's another thing, guys, that I started doing this a lot after I played. If you really sit down and look at some numbers, like, I don't think people realize when guys get into the Hall of Fame that are kind of maybe borderline guys, go look at the numbers, man. Go look at them because they stand out. And I remember the first time I ever did, I had Paul Molitor as a hitting coach for me in Seattle in 2004. And that's the year he went in. And we went to Milwaukee and they had Paul Molitor Day, and they had a folder on the tables in Phil Rosewitz's little clubhouse there. And, I opened it up and I'm like, I knew Paul Molitor was a really, really good player, but I didn't know how good until I looked at those numbers. So I think it's a good study for people or fans to look at, to go really in depth in the numbers.
Yeah, I think that's important. And Rich, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, but one thing that I think the reason he was able to get in on this ballot as opposed to the writers' ballot is, unfortunately, I think a lot of the writers don't look at when these guys actually played and what was important. And we're not allowed to talk about RBI now. It's like, it's this bad word almost. Like, it's like, no, who cares, right? It's not mentioned in MVP cases these days. It's not mentioned. We look at wins above replacement. We look at all these other things, WRC plus. But when you played, that was the most important thing. And especially if you're a middle of the order hitter. And so I think one thing that stood out just listening to the broadcast tonight was they mentioned the 800 RBI seasons, including 6 in a row. And, you know, he goes down third all time in runs driven in by a second baseman, first in homers, and also had 2,400 hits. And maybe you can speak to this. When you played, nobody knew what WAR was. Nobody knew what WRC plus was. It was the back of your baseball card was batting average. Jeff Kent hit 297 as a Giant. Home runs, most ever by a second baseman, and RBIs. And he's third all time for second baseman.
Yeah, it shows you how much the game has really changed, right? I mean, you look at guys these days, and I personally think, and, you know, I've been working in the game now since I've been retired for a long time. I think sometimes we get caught up a little too much in these numbers because basically it's an algorithm, man. It's just you plug some numbers in and something gets spit out. I don't think we look, you know, what did Jim Leland say? The analytics, you need some of the analytics sometimes to watch how people play and watch how they conduct themselves out there. And Jeff was, I mean, and I think every guy that was on every team that we were on together with Jeff was the guy that you wanted up with guys in scoring position with 2 outs because you knew he was going to come through. And you look at some of those numbers. I mean, they mentioned some other number. It was like he hit over 290, but with runners in scoring position, he was over 300 and over 500 slugging. And they said he's the only middle infielder, you know, to do that ever. So the numbers are staggering. And again, it's just a different time. You're right. It's just a different era of game now where things are looked at differently, where, you know, RBIs are, yeah, whatever, you know, but, you know, Jeff Kent was an RBI machine. And, you know, it helped that he also, you know, he hit behind a guy who was on base all the damn time. So it helped him out a lot.